What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with your betting preview for this week's AT&T Pebble Beach. And before we jump into it, I have some good news. The tournament predictor tool that I have been, and if you're listening on the podcast, I just air quoted tournament predictor because I don't really know what else to call it. But that's like the working name of the tool that I've been showing you over the last couple of weeks that helps us try to determine who is a valuable outright bet and who is not. That tool is now live on dfsondemand.com, my website. It is most certainly still in beta. It is still a work in progress, but if you are a subscriber to the site, will now have the ability to go in and play around with it as I continue to make upgrades over the course of the next handful of weeks. So with that being said, if you are not a member of dfsondemand.com, what are you doing? You're crazy. But also, I would like to give away a few weekly memberships for you to try out. So there are two ways to enter this draw. As usual, the ways to enter them are here on YouTube. What you can do is like the video, make sure you're subscribed to my RickRunGood YouTube channel, and tell me which bet not named Dustin Johnson do you like the most to win this golf tournament. If you're listening on the audio podcast, leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen, and say something nice about the show. Leave me your Twitter handle. That will get you entered into the draw as well. I'll pick a few names, and then you can go in and mess around with the tournament predictor as well. So now, as I transition over to the site here, let's do this. There we go. Wow. In real time. Nice little transition. I'm using a new software. Okay. So now not only do you have the head-to-head betting matchups tool, but you also have this beauty, what I'm calling tournament predictor tool. So as subscribers and users and followers have seen over the course of the last handful of months, there are more and more betting tools that are coming to DFS On Demand, in addition to a lot of the already existing and improved DFS tools, fantasy tools. So this is just a extension of where I think we're going, and will give you more information to work with. If you've never seen this tool before, remember that I am not trying to necessarily predict the winner. I am trying to predict the likelihood that each golfer gets to the winning score based on previous years and what the average winning score would be. It is possible that multiple guys get to the winning score. Obviously, not multiple guys are going to win the golf tournament. So for this week, AT&T Pebble Beach, of course, it's a 3-course rotation where I'm unveiling this, right? So it's a little difficult to gather the strokes gained data outside of, say, Pebble Beach. But for our purposes, I'm going to stick our target score here at 15 strokes gained. So you can mess around with this. You can change it from 10 to 20 or whatever you want. But I'm going to stick with 15 and let that populate my sheet. Now, when I'm using the full range, dating back to 2016 strokes gained data, the full gamut of data, there are really not a lot of guys that pop off on this list. The first one is Kevin Na at 70 to 1. My model says he is going to get to this winning score 2.1% of the time. His price is 1.4% of the time. So he is actually a value there. And then the only other values that we have, Kevin Chappell, no surprise to see his name, considering he has the ability to go nuclear, which is what we saw when he shot that 59 earlier in Greenbrier. Siwoo Kim actually here. Again, you're seeing a lot of guys that are just really feast or famine. And then Smiley Kaufman, technically a small value, which is crazy to think because I would never bet him. This is not a blind loyalty chart here, especially because I still have Smiley Kaufman's potential of getting to the winning number 0.27% of the time, and that would be a lot worse if we change it to recently, which I like to do. So I like to continue to look at this from a since January 1st of 2019 standpoint. So I'm just going to adjust the date up here and see how that changes things. So after I adjust to January 1st, 2019, you can see this is basically using a lot of golfers' last 20 or so starts on the PGA Tour. Dustin Johnson, the favorite, who he's basically 7.5 to 1 to win this golf tournament, he gets to the winning number, 15 strokes gained. He gets there about 8.7% of the time. Unfortunately, his implied odds and how often he would have to win based on that short of a number is 13% of the time. So not a lot of great value in these short numbers, but I think for the first time, the second favorite, Patrick Cantlay, technically deems as a value bet here in the outright market, meaning that he gets to the winning score about 9.6% of the time, and Vegas implies that he's going to win, obviously, 9% of the time. So there is about a 0.5% of value on Patrick Cantlay. Other guys, Kevin Na, no surprise. He's probably the best value. He is going to get to the winning score just under 3% of the time. He is priced in a place that says he wins it about 1.5% of the time. So 1.5% of value is where Kevin Na checks in here. Ches Reavie checks in. Nate Lashley checks in. Siwoo still is a value. Even guys like, I mean, you're getting into really, really small odds and smaller sample sizes here, but like Matt Every, Zach Sucher, and Jonathan Bird, the reason they show up is their range of outcomes, while it can be super bad, still plenty of upside, right? Like that's always been Siwoo's kind of situation, and Matt Every, for that matter, like just as likely to finish dead last as he is to actually go out and win the golf tournament. But there is, you have to use a little bit of judgment here. So if I'm looking at this, the only guys that are really appealing to me in the outright market, someone like Nate Lashley, who played well last week, and we've seen win and go nuts before. He is a value, and that kind of passes the eye test as well. Kevin Na kind of passes the eye test as well. And then Patrick Cantlay, being one of the top guys in the field and still coming off as a value in the betting market, actually also catches my attention. So really, this tool pushes me towards those three golfers. Now, betting outrights is incredibly difficult. It's very hard to predict. It's almost impossible. So what I've been talking about, and you can see I've given myself some room here. I'm going to expand this tool out for probably top 5 and top 10 at least. If I can get top 20 in here, I will do the same. And then what you'll be able to do is adjust each of the spots. So you can say, okay, the target score to win is 15 strokes gained, but the target score to be in top 5 is 10 strokes gained. Who is capable of doing that? Compare that to their top 5 number, and then see if there's any value there. So that is you're looking at phase 1 right now. That's kind of phase 2 and phase 3. So bear with me on that. I'll get that up and running, but now you can actually go and mess around with this data on the website, which is pretty cool in itself. And then also, I still have this head-to-head betting matchup tool, which I've been using fairly successfully over the course of the last couple of weeks. And I've got DJ and Patrick Cantlay plugged in here first off. And DJ, again, I don't think you should be following anything blindly. And you shouldn't also be following this blindly because it uses strokes gained, and DJ was so bad at the end of the year last year. He is probably undervalued in my model as well, because I have Patrick Cantlay winning a head-to-head matchup with Dustin Johnson 60% of the time, which is a pretty significant number. Now, I don't think that is actually true, that would happen. I think it's closer than that. Cantlay still might be a small favorite, but I don't think it's that big. 60% in a head-to-head matchup is a pretty significant number. But I do want to look at some other guys here, and I am going to use the DraftKings sports book odds here. I live in California. I do not have access to this yet. After looking at the options, I'm hoping I get access to it soon and we can pass the legislation, because there's a lot of great options here. But I wanted to use at least a US regulated book that is available in some states to some of you to at least look at the odds and see what is out there. And then kind of use that as that way we're not jumping around on books and I'm getting tweets that are like, oh, you said it was 66 to 1. I saw it at 50 or 40. Like, yeah, there's a lot going on, but I'm going to try to use the DraftKings stuff as much as possible here. So when you look at matchups, I just showed you Johnson versus Cantlay, which these are all very, very close. Casey versus Kuchar. Let's plug that one in. And I'm still going with that January 1st. Everything since January 1st. I think that's a good time frame. It gives you a big enough sample size, but not too long. It gives you about 60, 70, 80 measured rounds for each one of these guys. Razor thin on Paul Casey. I have Casey winning a 4-round head-to-head matchup against Matt Kuchar 51% of the time. When you add in juice, that's probably not bettable. This one's got to be big, right? Hovland versus Berger. That's got to be a pretty big number. Pretty big differential, I would assume. Let's see. Hovland versus Berger is, yeah, I've got Hovland winning this 72% of the time. Obviously a massive number. It's probably shorter than that because Hovland hasn't been playing that as well overseas. And the numbers that I'm using are only based on 28 measured rounds for Victor Hovland. Daniel Berger has a much larger sample size, almost 3 times what Victor does. So I don't think it's 72%, but I bet you it is more than the implied. Like Hovland is -110, Daniel Berger's +100. Almost essentially a coin flip. You're paying a little bit of juice there on Victor. But I have it probably significantly better than that. So I will probably take Hovland. Let's see Knox and Hadwin because I really like Knox. Let's see if I can get Knox versus, who was it, Hadwin? I had a 10-1 bet on Russell Knox as the top Euro last week. And he finished 1 shot behind Jon Rahm for that, which was a little disappointing. But I've got Russell Knox winning this about 56% of the time, which would imply his, his money line without juice to be -127. He is -110. It's close. I still might bet Russell Knox in that situation. Adam Hadwin, I do like both of these guys, but that's pretty close. And then let's look at Kisner and Hoagie, because Kisner is going to have just a much larger sample size, I feel like, or maybe not sample size, but Hoagie's only been really good recently. So if I use longer term stuff, Kiz wins this about 53% of the time. That's since January 1st. If I shorten this up, I bet you Hoagie starts to become a favorite. Yeah, he does. So if I go from like the last 6 or 8 months or so, Hoagie actually becomes a small favorite in this, about 56. So they kind of flip-flop there. So that one's kind of on you to decide what you... Actually, that's not bad for Hoagie. What the time frame you want to use is. I like that, that since January 1st. That's kind of my default. So that's where I go here, which would give Kisner a nod, but maybe it's a no bet considering how quickly those two flip around. Let's see what else they've got here, because there's so many good props and specials that are being offered here. I love the groups. So Group A, DJ Cantlay, Casey Day, Kuchar. I probably am not. That's probably a no bet for me. If I was forced to, I guess I'd bet Casey at +450. But I don't love it. Group B, Fitz, Snedeker, Berger, Grace, Hovland. Wow. Pretty even. It wouldn't be Berger, I'll tell you that. Probably wouldn't be Fitzpatrick, I'll tell you that. Snedeker at +300 or Hovland at +350, probably. I need to get a tool for group betting. That's next on the list. And then... Oh, Group C is kind of interesting. Here you go. Russell Knox, Phil Mickelson, Jordan Spieth, Adam Hadwin, Graham McDowell. This is like 3 guys I love to pick on. Jordan Spieth, Graham McDowell, Phil Mickelson, all in the same group. So that, to me, kind of narrows it down to Russell Knox or Adam Hadwin, which is actually a matchup. So Knox +300, Hadwin +350. What if you bet... Obviously, this doesn't add up this is my brain working, but like if you bet group here for Knox to be plus 300 and then bet Hadwin versus Knox in the head-to-head on the plus side of money, and one of those guys wins this, I guess you could probably do a little bit on that. Sorry, I was reading a message there. That's interesting. I really don't like those other guys. You know, you're overpaying for Phil and McDowell coming back from Saudi Arabia, and you're overpaying for Jordan Spieth because his name's Jordan Spieth. So I don't really like any of that. So I'll have Knox or Hadwin in that group, almost certainly for sure. Top pass champion: Johnson, Snedeker, Phil, Spieth, Vaughn Taylor. Wow, that's just a big. I don't know if I'll bet DJ. He's so short, plus 125. This is kind of cool. So that's where we're at. I'm going to try to start to, or I'm not going to try to. I am expanding a lot of the offerings betting wise on DFS on demand. So highly encourage you to go check that out. Tournament predictor tool is up. Head-to-head matchup tool has been up, but has been recently refined. Really like where everything is headed, and I'll continue to expand. Let me know what you think about that. Tweet me. It's at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. Talk to you guys soon. Good luck.